Bryan, were you looking to be a part of a reality show? Maybe putting out some feelers?
No, I was not doing that. I get calls pretty regularly because of my past. People, and it's so funny. I asked them how they found me, and they're like, "I just Googled jewelry thief, and you pop up."
The first?
So
Maybe you should talk to Google about that.
I don't know. It's gotten me this far. That's how America's Most Wanted found me. That's how Crime Works found me. They flew me out to New York to do an episode. That's on YouTube right now. That's over 2 million viewers, it was just such a good time. And then America's Most Wanted was a dream come true because John Walsh is just a legend in prison. He really is. It was the only show that we could watch with the
It's
other
Sean
inmates.
Walsh and then Keith Morrison, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was cool because it was just, not to be on as a suspect is always a plus in your life. You
Sure.
know what I mean? When you're like, hey, I was on it, but I wasn't being chased. That was good. Who was it? Pittman Casting called me and they said, hey, it started with online, I think. They got me on Instagram and I thought it was just a fluke. And my fiance said, answer that. That could be fun. And, I followed the trail and they ended up picking me. I was actually even surprised up to the very last day. They're like, pack your bags, we're going to Argentina. I was still surprised.
What was it about then the concept for the snake that was like, I'm in?
They didn't say a lot. They didn't tell you a lot. They just said we are taking people that are in convincing fields. They said you're a personal trainer, so you have to convince people to exercise. You're a stand-up comic, you got to convince people to laugh. And I imagine being a thief, you had to convince people to give you their stuff. And I said, no, the gun pretty much did that. But not many people are scared of this. They really aren't. Um, but no, it sounded intriguing to me, and it's again, it for me, it was a once in a lifetime thing. It is not. There's a very small section of the population that have done something like this, so I'm proud to consider myself part of that.
I know you are a personal trainer and you're fit, so going into this, but not knowing the challenges, did you try to switch up your workout routine at all?
No, for me, fitness is about adaptation. So it's being as fit as possible so that when they throw you something, you can adapt to it very quickly. I also had a funny feeling that this wasn't going to be about physicality.
Okay.
I had a funny feeling this was going to be more mental than anything else, given what I did know about the show. So I just tried to prepare myself to eat a bug. That was my one fear. I'm like, I know they're gonna make me try to eat a bug, and and my fiance's like, you eat that bug. That's $100,000 bug if they put that in front of you. And then for you just don't know what they're gonna throw at you. So no, it didn't change my workout at all. I'm 55 now. I was just hoping my lower back made it through the whole competition.
Who are some of your first impressions then of your fellow contestants, and did you sort of size anyone up maybe as your biggest competition right away?
No, I'll tell you, as soon as I came out of that crate, I felt like I was back in first grade because it was look at all these beautiful people. Like I felt like I was standing before a kickball game waiting to get picked, and I knew I was going to get picked last. No, seriously, it hit somewhere like deep psychological when I didn't get picked for the what we ended up calling the dinner crew. When I didn't get picked for that, I was really starting to get down. I might have just been too dehydrated, but I went into that first challenge just like wow, this is hard. This is much harder than I thought it was going to be. So I went in pretty negative, but then when I found out that there's a possibility we were just going to touch snakes, I got instantly comfortable and I was like, okay, I can do this.
Well, I didn't love Detective Derek insinuating they should reopen some of your cases.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
Having known you maybe for half a day, I don't know at that point how long he knew you. How did
Right.
that make you feel?
I don't remember, I didn't see when he went into the confessional and said, "Hey, let's reopen these
Sure.
cases here," because I think he's confessing. So I do what I always do. I use my past as like a social hand grenade. I just am like, "Hey, I'm just gonna drop this bomb in the middle of a bunch of normal people and see how they process it." Because again, that the whole sentence of what I did with my father and my brother is normal to me. That's my level of normal. So everything you people are doing is not normal. Like you regular people fascinate me that are paying your mortgage and hugging your kids and doing right by them because that wasn't the life that I had. So I didn't know that he said it, but now that I know that he said it, we had our words over the internet. We had our little battle, and it's done.
Jim and you seem to have quite the banter, and I watched him online say that you were one of his personal favorite contestants. How did that make you feel?
Oh, I love Jim. First of all, he's at the level of stand-up comedy that I always dreamed. I dabble a little bit in stand-up comedy. I would never compare what I do to what he does on the stage. But because I'm such a fan of it, have always been a fan of it, in a dysfunctional family, waking up in the middle of the night and going downstairs and turning on the TV and watching Richard Pryor become all these characters and crack all these jokes was always a dream of mine. So to be standing next to somebody that is pretty much legendary, he's in Europe right now, just touring, doing stand up, which is something I always wanted to do. So it was awesome. I love the guy. I when I go back to the pick your poison challenge and hear how much he was rooting for me, I was like, this guy's all right, man. I like Jim a lot. But I was gonna take his watch, and I stand by that.
All right, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Did you guys have any time during, or between, I should say, challenges to maybe talk about stand-up comedy and what he would maybe even advise you for how to improve or how to move forward in your comedy career?
Oh my God, if you knew there was just no time for anything. This was such a tightly run. I guess I've never done a reality show before, but no, there was no time to do anything like that. There was some standing around time waiting for stuff to happen, but it was we generally had to stay quiet during that time because this was a competition and they were very serious about the guidelines that you have to follow to make this a fair competition. And
Mm.
that's why you ended up seeing the egg competition happen again. It was just, hey, these people have a compliance officer here, and the compliance officer wants to make sure this is done right because this is for a lot of money. And I was psyched that we ended up doing that challenge again because it was like, hey, no, this game is serious, and they could edit that any way they want. I mean, this is TV. They could put another AI character in there, and we would have known it. But the fact that they went by the rules and they did things strict was comforting to say the least.
There was quite the controversy, though, during the food drink challenge. Did you think Pastor Jacob was sort of stirring up drama for cameras, or was he trying to just really psych people out to win the competition?
What's funny about the pastors? I don't think either. He just came in and thought he was going to be a pastor, and I think when he found out that there was an evil component to this, a manipulative component. I want to say evil. I don't know why that. We all manipulate to get what we need, but I don't think that he was prepared for that part of it. So he went in it much the same way I did. I went in this like saying, "Hey, I've got a target on my back. Everybody thinks I'm going to be underhanded because I'm the ex-con," and I decided to do it the exact opposite. I said, "I'm going to win everybody over and make them my friends because as much as I've struggled with the idea that I'm an ex-con and the stigma that it comes with, very few people in my life post being out of prison have treated me any other way than completely awesome. So it's always been this thing that I was like, okay, I can win these people over for some reason that he couldn't. He's just struggled in that house, and I'm still amazed by it. Even to see the way that they're talking about him on some of these podcasts is still amazing to me. It's I don't know what it is about clergy and in my case,
I
even
think there's a
police officers.
stigma, I think, to
Is
both
it
of
right?
you.
I mean, I came from the
There's
Catholic Church.
expectations knowing between, the ex-con title and the pastor title. There's expectations put on you of how you should behave and how you should compete. So I think that's a little bit of both.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't even know if I answered your question, but this is awesome.
Yeah, we were talking about whether or not we thought Pastor Jacob was putting on for the cameras to throw people off of the competition and maybe, get his win, or if he was trying to stir up drama.
No, neither. Like I said, neither. I just don't. I think that guy was completely overwhelmed by what ended up happening in the game, and then he just bore down and he fought to win that cockroach challenge, which I was super happy that he won it. And again, I got pretty upset with him because I was hoping that he would eventually save me because of how much time he and I had spent together. I always gave him the benefit of the doubt, regardless of what the rest of the house was thinking. I mean, that's all I heard from the rest of the house was, let's get rid of this guy. And I was like, why? But I would rather face a strong competitor than try to take out strong competitors and just leave a bunch of weak people and skate to the finish. I did none of that, but It was still a lot of fun.
So you found out you had to repeat that challenge. Uh, was there any talk of not doing it behind you guys, or you were just like, fine, whatever, we'll do it, and you sort of went into it and did what it did. I
Yeah,
mean, I had talked to you a little bit about how maybe I would have rallied everyone and been like, we're just not doing it. I can't, my stomach can't handle it. We're not, if we all say we're not doing it, maybe we aren't gonna do it. Or they have to
yeah,
figure out
yeah.
a different way.
Strength in numbers. Um, no, I think you hear it on the show. You hear Devontae get very upset that we had to do it again. But I think everybody else understood. Hey, this is the way this goes. I kept saying, season one working out the kinks, because the barrels, those buckets weren't designated for a specific person. You know what I mean? It's not like I turned around and knew instantly which one was my bucket. So anybody that spit stuff
Fair
into
game.
that, anybody, and I'll tell you who I
Spitting
think
up
did.
was fair game.
Yeah, I did. I think Devontae spit in that bucket. I think he turned around, reached right over, and spit in that bucket, not to cheat anybody, because those things were absolutely
Gross.
disgusting. But there was no designation of buckets back there, so it was tough to know whose was whose. So if there was egg in one and they were marked, I guess, I don't know, you could have a Devontae bucket.
I have to ask about the bug challenge. Was it more claustrophobic than disgusting having bugs on you?
Um, I don't think I thought it would be as visceral. You can feel
Okay.
every one of those little legs on your face, and then you have them crawling on your face. You have them going across your mouth, so you have to kind of have grit teeth. You can see one goes across my mouth as I'm opening my mouth. So I was like, oh my God, the way that I say that, I felt like I was trying to do uh, throw my voice. Then
Ventriloquism.
you gotta talk to the person across from you, which was Frankie, who is before I even went in there, saw that he was about to have a full-blown panic attack on national television. He was so afraid. And of course that's it. You gotta be mentally tough in this competition, because they threw at you every one of your fears. Every one of them. And not only that, but then you're in the jungle and there's sort of natural things that, like, there was a tarantula on our floor one day just kind of chilling out. Like, that's a house spider where we were. I mean, there's a house spider here and I'll still scream like I'm being murdered. No, I'm not dealing with it. And
I
then, a
literally
regular, just
said,
regular sized tarantula just walking through its day has some guy screaming bloody murder at it.
I literally tweeted that I had seen a cockroach in my kitchen that morning and I screamed bloody murder and I just saw it. It didn't touch me in any particular way. So I felt like you were perfectly justified in not forcing Frankie to continue sitting there and have it all on your face. And you were just like, all right, we're out. We're doing this, but we're leaving
Yeah.
this. And hopefully someone will keep us safe. And in that manner, I mean, Catherine was the villain of the series. And maybe it was unbeknownst to you at that point that she was in it to sort of cut throats, it seemed, because she had a whole plan.
No.
Did you take her not picking you personally after having all those heartfelt conversations and even saying she would have you walk her down the aisle if her dad wasn't available?
Yeah, and at this point, it's tough to know whether or not that was even true. But I had those heartfelt conversations with everybody on the cast. I mean, everybody came in there with a story. Everybody came in there with a past, and I talked to every one of them about it. But you hope to go into these situations and form long-lasting bonds with people. That, I mean, we went through in a very short period of time. I mean, imagine you meet somebody on the street and you're friends with them. You're going to meet with them for coffee maybe a couple times a week for an hour, and over a couple of years, you're going to get to know them. We were thrust into, sharing a sink with somebody, and in a living situation, we all had to cook for each other. There was a lot of like instant bonding that had to happen very quickly. So, I hope to walk out of there with lifelong friends, because that was an experience that, we shared together that not everybody knows about.
Okay, so we talked about what Derek said and we talked about what Catherine said, but was there something while you've been watching the episodes that someone in particular said that may have touched a nerve?
Not yet, not yet. That's why I keep watching it. I'm sitting there watching it. I got my phone on the group, and I'm like, I'm gonna raise hell if somebody says something I don't like. And I've said stuff about people. I voiced my distaste for Brett, because he just brought up, like, he reminds me a lot of my brother, who I had a very confrontational relationship with. So my back was instantly up. And this isn't a game that you can go into and be like, I like these people personally. And then there's the gameplay. The gameplay is I have to bring this person onto, my side of the fence. There's no way that I can sit in this competition and not like somebody. When Christine came on, she wasn't exactly somebody that I was excited to sit down and have a conversation with. And I'm always, think to myself, wow, now that I did have a conversation with them, I'm glad. So I go into every one of those situations prejudiced by my own psychology. And I didn't like Brett, but I said, I got to win this kid over. And by the end of it, I like the kid. We still talk, and I think he's still a decent dude. We're just completely different people.
I mean, were you ever able to convince him to button up like one more button? It's
I
like
kept asking him, I was like, are these bottom ones broken? I see there's a button there. Is it a hole
you
issue
just
or what is
like
it?
you get there and you just like forget how to do it at that
There's,
point.
there's plenty of people on the production staff. We can get you somebody if you need. There's a medic maybe, but no, hey, listen, if you got it, flaunt it. So good for him, I guess. But I was tired of seeing his nipples by the end of my time there.
It broke my heart watching you leave. Do you just step into the crate and then head back to the hotel to pack and leave, or are you stuck there kind of secluded maybe until fully filming ends?
Yeah, no, they get you the hell out of there. They don't want you in Dodge anymore. And I don't know, Argentina, we were in the middle of a jungle. There were times that I swear to God we were filming and we heard automatic gunfire in the background. I was like, who the hell knows? That's how they hunt. Um, but it was, yeah, it would get him out of here quick. And it was so disappointing for me because again, um, I was just kind of getting into it after that second challenge, which I'll tell you, when I went up to those glasses, that whole challenge, as soon as I saw that tiki bar, I was like, this is it. They're gonna try to make me eat a bug. And this was my biggest fear coming in here. Touching a snake was fine, but now drinking something disgusting or eating something disgusting was just hey, that's my line, and you can't go into these things with lines. And the fact that I made it into that winner circle to eat those eggs was just a personal, like I was like, hey, I found something inside here that says I can fight and get through it. And Jesus, everything that I've been through, I should know that lesson better. But
But then
um,
when they were like, all right, you have to eat a second one, you're like, all right, I did it once. There's no way my body.
yeah, and listen, again, like I said, I'm 55 years old. I got old plumbing, man. You can't be stuffing rotten things into this
Old
and
blood.
not expecting yeah, it's just not. No, the eggs, I'll tell you, the eggs were so. The whole challenge is about keeping your breath held. And I remember this from the 1980s protein shakes. You drink a protein shake from the 1980s and it says chocolate, but nothing about that experience will turn that part of the chocolate brain of yours into that flavor in
Convince
your
you to
mouth.
make chocolate.
No, they just I gagged enough of those things down in my life that when I reached that drink, I was like, bro, you drank way worse than this, you know, couple 30 years ago. So let's do this. And then when you get to the
And you're
eggs,
like, that was 30 years ago. I remember why I didn't like it.
yeah, and the texture of the egg, the taste of the egg, and then of course, if you breathed in it all, you got all of
All
it.
the
It was, and then water doesn't help. It sticks, it stays in
Oh,
your face, and I could taste it hours after. I don't know how Jack even slept that night if he did. Um,
so what was a typical day of filming like for you guys?
It was, since the house is gameplay, essentially that's where you're plotting and trying to get, hey, who is going to save me next? How is this going to play out tonight? The closer we got to a saving ceremony, the more we ended up doing that stuff. So it'll get very tense. Then there's going to do your confessionals, which I don't know what it is about that room that they set up, but it just instantly made me a sobbing pile. I'm so glad they didn't show all my crying videos. I cried my eyes out. I was missing my fiance. I think at one point I don't know, I was missing everything. So they have you do confessionals a couple times a day. And then we just chill out. It's you try to enjoy Argentina as much as you can because it is a beautiful country.
Who have you kept in touch with from the show? And then heavily having finally seen your exit, do you have any bones to pick with anyone for not having picked you, maybe even?
See, this you ask me these questions, and I want to be political, and I just end up not being
I was just
political.
say, I don't know, Brian. I don't think you have it in you to be
I don't. So I'll just say, when I first went into that house, I always go into these very difficult situations and I'll end up hating everybody. And I got out of that box and I was like, I hate all of you because you're more beautiful than me. Every single one of them are prettier than me. And so
Jim called you old.
and he calls me old on the first episode. I'm like, well, yeah. Um, I was one of the oldest competitors, and I think that put me a little bit at a disadvantage when I was trying to bond with the younger guys because that bro crew is exactly three dudes that I would be either beaten up by as a kid or would never let me into their circle. So as much as I just did my best to work on Brett, and like I said, Brett was tough to win over. He's just deep down, like so many of us men, just a scared little boy inside. And that's what I ended up tapping into. So our scared little boys kind of chatted a little bit and got a little bit closer. So I think Brett ended up winning me over in the process of me trying to win him over. But I still hate the guy. I mean, you just look at him and he's just absolutely 6 feet of beauty. Like, how do you like that guy?
So no ill will at all towards Catherine and her scheming and her
No,
list.
I mean, no, because to me it was a game. I got other things to worry about. I can't hold resentments against anybody. I do not like police officers. I will tell you that. And I don't like police officers because time and time again, this institution shows that there's this little level of corruption in there that you just can't get out. I just finished watching the Karen Reed trial. It was up in Boston, and what we still have is a dead guy, and that won't be investigated now. You know what I mean? So the person that they were trying to send into hell and they didn't care about it, got off through two trials that cost the taxpayers millions of dollars, and there's still a dead guy whose death we don't know or even understand yet. So that just kind of has always been put into me as I'm a criminal. I'm supposed to hate cops. And in Boston, we have a special distaste for anybody,
We've seen
anyone of color.
Departed. We've
Not
seen
yet.
Wahlbergs.
Well, no, but you have to understand what that's really about. Living there, there's so much corruption. People talk about Chicago being a corrupt city, Boston was 10 times more corrupt. I mean, we had our own section of town where you could go and buy drugs, you could get a hooker, you could see, you get a lap dance, everything that you wanted to do that was bad. The mob just kept to 3 blocks of the city. We called the combat zone. We literally had the name for it. The cops knew it was there the whole time, and they left you alone to do that. And so we grew up with so much corruption that there's this. I think that's how we ended up robbing jewelry stores as a family because there was always this underlying set that said, "Hey, if you can beat the system, go ahead and beat it because they've been beating you since their inception." So you know, that's where I come from, and that's where that attitude comes from.
Well, speaking
We got controversial.
speaking of along those lines, and you were pretty envious of Jim's watches. Can you either confirm or deny you made it home with any of them? I would say Jacqueline, cover your ears.
No, I think when I was on his podcast, we joked about it because he definitely noticed. But it was I was psyched to have some banter with and to get a stand-up comedian to laugh. That was a professional stand-up comedian. If I can get him to laugh and get him to think I'm cool, then I'm doing all right. That's how I measure,
I
my
mean, he
level of
said
guilt.
if you wanted it, you could have it. Is that true?
No, he didn't tell me that.
No,
I
no,
absolutely.
you. No, no, you
Oh,
said if I want it, I could have. He
oh,
said you in the
oh,
challenge. You said you said I see your relics, and you go, and he said, "Are you thinking about it?" And you said, "If I wanted, I could have it."
yeah. I'm not as smooth as I proclaim to be. I'm not one of those guys that could slip that off his wrist. But the co-host of his podcast told me he would send me his home alarm code so that I could go in there unabated, and that's really nice. See, people are generally good. I wanted to win this whole show because I wanted to send the message to kids that crime does pay, and I
I
didn't.
was
I
gonna
didn't
say,
get, I didn't
you
get
said on
that.
Jim's podcast you still have the wristwatch. The last, maybe you're wearing it right there. The watch that you stole. Are you allowed to have that, Brian?
Of course not. It's ill-gotten. It's ill-gotten gains, but
Is it
this
so? Is it a trophy? Is it something you keep as a learning experience to not go back there?
everything in my life right now is a learning experience not to go back there. It's I just I grew up as a person that just loved to steal. It wasn't my dad didn't come in and put a gun in my hand, and that was the beginning of where I started that. I stole my friend's watch in the third grade, and then I helped him look for it. Like that's like I just enjoyed it. It's like who doesn't enjoy it? Everybody, you all do it. I watch all of you do it now. I sit back on my high horse and I watch you do it. My fiance got three $25 vouchers at a hotel we were vacationing at, and she didn't like the expiration date, so she changed it. Like she's sitting down with like one of those things, jewelers, and like changing that one to a four because she
Jeez,
didn't want to lose.
you were you were just so proud at that moment to
You have no
sure.
idea. You have no idea.
You're
I
like,
was
I could
bursting
not
with
have loved you more right now.
no. I think I asked her to marry me again when I
I would
watched it.
have. I would have too
You
if
know,
I
just the satisfaction she had in doing it. So everybody steals.
were like, you
So
were meant for me. I knew we were, soulmates.
yeah. No, the irony there is I just ratted her out on a national.
Actually, you didn't say what hotel chain was. We're fine.
Nope, no, we're good. No details.
So we talked a little bit about your what you took away maybe or what you were hoping to take away, I should say, from being a part of this, or what you learned maybe about yourself along the way. Is there something you were surprised about? Maybe going into this now you're like, I'm a beast, man. I knew that about myself, but I knew there was like a line maybe I had, but I surpassed that line.
God, I only learned stuff about myself. I think one of the things that ended up distracting me was this became a psychological experiment for me personally. One was the first night I was like, boy, a lot of my insecurities came up. I didn't trust Catherine when I should have. I thought I was reminded that I can't trust my own instincts. My own instincts have always led me down a really bad path. And my instinct said that Jordan had the medallion. And I was wrong again. And I was like, geez, even at 55, I'm wrong again. So I spent that first night laying in my bed thinking, what am I going to do? I don't have a strategy here. And then I started to say, hey, my strategy just needs to be unpredictable, which is what I think the title, you keep calling me ex-con, keep it up because it puts you in a place that makes you start to think something about me that either isn't true or that I'm going to flip on you. And that was what became my strategy. And of course, in hindsight, it sounds a lot more planned out than it actually was. I did a lot of this game, flying by the seat of my pants, which is what you have to do in robbery. You can't plan a robbery and you can't plan all of the contingencies. So I think that's what I'm good at. I'm good at being able to adapt really quickly and then try to make another plan of escape. But ultimately it didn't work. I knew one of us in the trauma crew, the people that went to that first challenge, had to go. I mean, we had systematically dismantled the dinner crew.
It was a plan to get rid of the bros, and it didn't even work.
The pastor was fine. The dinner crew was finally in power. Like we had two safety ceremonies where the trauma crew was in power. And then all of a sudden we see two dinner crew up there, and we thought two trauma crew were gonna go, but then dinner crew got rid of somebody important to them. So I can't wait to see the rest of the series because I want to see that continually break down. Um, because now it's interesting. You have Christine walk in through the door, and she's neither.
And there's
And she
more people to come, it looked like.
Oh, she's in a precarious position because she's in neither camp. And notice neither camp is already sort of being like, I don't think we can trust her.
Cody's
Um,
all in though.
Cody's all in, but
I think
and,
Cody and some of his lower regions are in more than his upper regions.
well, that's I mean, what more do you expect from a guy that gets on dangerous animals and tries to stay on them? I mean, that's like when you look at his face up close, man, he's had all of his teeth have been smashed out of his face. He got kicked by something, who the hell knows? He's been on a couple of other reality shows that were all cowboy based, and he ripped somebody off of their horse for punching his, and that is a real man right there. And as much of a problem as I had with like Brett is a paper man, like he's a manufactured with protein supplements, and then you have a real man that sits down and eats steak every night for dinner, and kicks a coyote in the head every morning, it's part of his job. And just everything about Cody was just man, 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 man. And that's what you got to appreciate about him. Once you understand what he's saying.
Okay. My only other question is, would you compete in a reality show again?
I'm gonna definitely do, and I'm gonna say it right now. So I'm glad, hopefully Fox is listening, but I'm gonna propose not season two of the snake, maybe three or four, be an all ex-convict snake.
Okay.
Only ex-convicts. You should be able to find at least
Google worked well for you. So
right. But it would be nice to sit with like-minded people, make it a little, and you can do the challenges, based on if we you can get out of a box or stay out of the hole for a
no
night or
survivor for
something.
you, no fear factors. I mean, Johnny Knoxville is coming up there. I think you've had your fill of bugs and, century eggs that we know you're not going out for any other shows like that.
I know. I'm listen. I'm not the guy to eat stuff that's disgusting, and I actually this was much more comforting for me knowing that this was just a glass full of stuff that if it would they just brought out a plate of beetles, that wasn't going to happen. That was not something I was going to do. Um, I'll sleep on the couch with my fiance for 6 months. I don't care. I'm not eating that bug. She's like, that's $100,000 bug. But I would absolutely do it again. The production company was amazing. They treated us right. And half of the people that I would continue relationships with were on that side of the camera. You know what I mean? Great, great people just making really cool, entertaining TV, and they have amazing attitudes. And I can't say enough about it. It's difficult having a mic on all day. They would I had to change my whole bathroom schedule because you never want to go into the bathroom with a mic on and just the entire production staff knowing what's going on. It's embarrassing. So, but other than that, I would do another reality show.
Is there anything I didn't touch on you want me to be sure we cover, Brian, or you think I got it all down?
I no, this was a lot of fun. I love the questions. Were any of these from Instagram?
There was one person I think who said, "How did you get on the show?" But these were all Jamie questions that I wanted to know. I was eager to chat with you about.
Yeah, did I answer all of them for you?
Yes, everything's good. I'm gonna hit stop then on recording.